so excited to actually do this episode because our guest for today is someone super, super special to me. Actually, Sara. So our guest is Sara. Welcome to the Life Whispers podcast.
Thank you. It feels like crazy that I'm going to be on your show because I feel like I know your show so intimately as a massive follower and listener. So yeah, totally. We're having the just chilling in a friend's living room kind of vibes, but just, casually thousands of miles away.
Casually, which is the good thing about technology. Like it literally, we've seen each other like 2 times or 3 because it was a 3-day thing. And I feel like I've seen you so many times.
Yes.
So going back, right? So for you guys to know a little bit about how Sara and I know each other, Sara was actually my first official podcaster friend. Actually, Sara, I want you to tell the story.
Yes. Okay, so we got tickets, both Viviana and I got tickets to this conference thanks to our wonderful podcast host called Buzzsprout. And she and I won tickets to go to this conference in Florida. And she, just like me, showed up alone, didn't know anybody else, went on a whim. And at the first day, it had to have been the first day because we got so close for what felt like a long time. But the first day I walked up to this nice looking girl who was just going through her souvenir little bag at a tall cocktail table in between sessions. And I said, "Oh, can I set my bag up here?" And then we just got to talking and it was over after that.
Literally. I love it because you go to these conferences and to be honest, even though I'm like an extrovert and I love making friends and talking to people, I was a little bit like intimidated. I don't know about you.
Yes. Like the only person I knew was our other friend, Kristin, who I ended up introducing Viviana to. And Kristin is super marketing manager to the nth degree. And I remember her telling me like, "Girl, you better like get a Facing Fear shirt printed." She was like, "It doesn't have to be your branding, nothing. Like you got to bring some kind of merch with you." And I was like, "What is merch?"
What is it? At least you got some guidance. I saw everyone with like stickers and t-shirts and I'm like, what is this? I did not get the memo.
But now look at us. I've sold over 100 pieces or 100 orders. It's more pieces at this point of merch. And you have these beautiful stickers and stationery and notepads. So proud of us.
We've grown a lot for sure.
Yes. Next podcast conference we go to, we will be cocky AF.
Yes. It's like, listen, I already know how this works. No, but it was so nice because I think podcasting is obviously something that I don't think I know. I think now more people, because of the pandemic, I think it kind of accelerated the pace at which people listen to podcasts. But at that time, I was like one of the few friends of my friends that actually had a podcast. And it was like this very weird thing that I decided to embark on. Yeah. So at that point, I'm in this conference. I don't know anything myself, but meeting people like you that we definitely hit it off like immediately. It was so nice to be like, okay, so how do you do this? Or how do you do that? Or how do you feel about this?
It's funny because it's the same reflection, or it's like this parallel category I've put myself in with breast cancer, which I know we're going to talk about. But so I got this thing that many other people in the world have. Many other people have cancer, and a lot of people have breast cancer. But I did not know anybody in an immediate second, third, or fourth circle. You know, since then I've met some people, and it was the same thing with podcasting. Like, I mean, even to this day, like you guys are my closest friends with podcasts, and it's just a different language. The challenges are, misunderstood by everybody else. And so, we obviously popped off about our podcasting life that nobody else around us really understands. And then I recently, actually coming out this week as in January 12th, I have someone on my show who has gone through breast cancer. Her name is Amber. And it was the same thing. I think our total recording time was like 2.5 hours. So I did cut it down a little bit, but it's so cool to get yourself into pools of people who can understand your language with things that you're going through.
100%. And I think something when you're like in your 30s, right? And you've already finished college and finished you're already on your path in your career, it's hard to meet people. And I know something that people kind of enforce a lot is creating that community with passions that you have or circumstances that you face.
Yeah.
So I think it's been super important for me to have friends like you guys that can support me or answer questions or share information with. And I'm sure in this journey that you're on, just having someone that can tell you more than I'm here for you and I'm cheering you on is important.
Yes.
So it's interesting because, and I was right before I hit the record button, I was telling Sara, I hadn't had you on my podcast. I know that when we met, Kristin had us on hers and we were literally like drinking tequila and eating pizza in the conference.
Yes.
So that was the first time we were together. And then I think she did a second one. So that was the second time we got together. And then you interviewed me on yours. And I had this, obviously, because I had done themed seasons.
Yeah.
It wasn't as easy to just bring anybody on because
totally.
I was following that. But I feel like what we would have talked about a few months ago is super different than what we would talk about now. So I want to hear a little bit about how you started the Facing Fear with Sara podcast. And then we'll get into, I guess, the biggest fear that you're facing right now and how you're managing that. So take us way back to when you thought you had an idea of doing a podcast.
Yes. So it started as a blog, and I mean, really, the beginning of it was studying abroad in Ireland between my junior and senior year. I started blogging just my adventures there. And then when I got home, I continued to blog just about kind of anything, like questions, like prompts I would answer, family experiences, work experiences, whatever it was. And then I was like, you know what? This is a lot about me. Like, how can I share other people's stories? And so I started something called Passion Profiles. Ugh, barf.
I like it.
I could not come up with anything better. So it was Passion Profiles. And it was because I had found my career passion very early as a young adult, in their early 20s. And I felt like I struck gold and felt so lucky, but I wanted to help other people do the same. So I interviewed a bunch of other people who were chasing their passion regardless of paycheck. And it was really fun. And it was back before Zoom was mainstream. So I did these interviews over Skype, and I sat there and typed notes on my computer as these people talked to me. And I would tell them to like slow down or like repeat something because I was typing out like the interview essentially as they were going. And so it was a lot of fun, and it was a great way to just know people's stories, because as you know, with podcasting, like it gives you a chance to sit down with somebody and talk about more than the weather or their day or their job or whatever. It's like getting deep into people's minds. So I really enjoyed the blog. But the best thing about the blog versus podcasting, so much easier to edit text than it is to edit audio. So I missed that. I missed that easiness part of it. But I started realizing, you know, I would have these great conversations and we would laugh or cry or get off on tangents, but none of that made the blog because you're writing. So you're trying to keep it concise. And so that like bummed me out. And I have been a huge podcast fan and thought I want to make a podcast one day. And so that's how it started for me. It was with a blog.
I feel like it's possible that a lot of podcasters start that same way, because I started with the blog as well. I think the easiest way to get started is just writing, and then you're like, how can I make this better? Like same with you in your case where you were like, I'm leaving feelings out, right? Because when you're transcribing, you leave the laughter or the facial expressions or whatever. So I started with video, but I wasn't a part of the video. So then for me, it was like, oh, I'm getting all these great stories, but they're having all the fun and I'm just here like shooting, and, you know, I would leave myself out of it. And that's when I was like, I want to do the podcast as well. So
it would have been you asking them questions, but only their like answers, and they're the main star of the video. Like you're not even in it, right?
Correct. Exactly. It was the same as a podcast, but I would always leave myself out and be like, remember to answer in complete sentences.
Right.
Yeah.
So then I'll tell you about the next revolution, how I got from like talking about passions to fear. So then I started the show, and it's always been called Facing Fear, But I continued on like the blog series of passion over paycheck, passion profiles, whatever, for a while. And then when I decided I want to do a podcast, it was because I had explored public speaking a lot and done that. And after I turned like 24, I started realizing that not everybody is fortunate enough, privileged enough, happy enough, healthy enough to whatever, fill in the adjective, to chase their passion and forego a paycheck or take a smaller paycheck. And I never wanted to exclude anybody from the stories I was going to tell. So then I started thinking, what do all these people have in common that I've interviewed? What's a theme in my life? And what I found was fear and facing fear. So I started the podcast. It's called Facing Fear, and it's facing as a verb, ing right there for you, because it's something we will do over and over and over throughout our lives. And my logo has facing in big, bold letters, and there's a cute little lightning bolt between the F and the A. And then fear is in very thin, just kind of like lowered letters, because while we are always going to face fear, it is definitely not going to be the main theme of our life. And so through my interviews and the people I talk to, I try to get their stories and then help others face fear in whatever way that may come across their plate.
I love that. And I love that you've also brought such a large variety of people facing fear, because I think sometimes we get a little bit stuck in one particular category. So I love business podcasts, and it's always like that fear of starting something, of launching. But there's also fear of like insecurity if you're an artist, or maybe fear because you faced really hard situations while you're growing up. I know you've seen a variety of I would say like kind of backgrounds and categories. And then we land on a new category, right? Recently. So tell us about this new category that you're facing now.
My podcast experience started at the end of 2019, and in 2020, pre-pandemic, I was already very motivated. And then once the pandemic hit and I started working from home, I was balls to the walls. I did so much work for the podcast. And now looking back, and this year we just ended, but 2021 to 22, it's really hard to have a full-time job, drive around, go to events, have a social life, and have a podcast. Podcasting just demands so much of your time, which is why a lot of people pod fade. And sometimes that happens to even us, the greatest hosts out there. And so in 2021, we had a crazy year. We got married after rescheduling our pandemic wedding. We bought a house, we renovated the house, and I actually did a whole series on buying property or owning property or investing. And that was the first time I did a series, which was kind of inspired by you, because you've done those chapters that are all like the same. We're getting at the same theme with different people, but different stories. And after that, I started to go on a different theme, and I wanted to talk about aging and facing the fear of aging. And then I just had kind of a mental breakdown in probably late August and September. And I was just like, I'm going to leave podcasting behind for like 3 months so I can just gather myself and figure out what's going on up here in my head, because I wasn't all together. And I don't know, it was anxiety, maybe a little bit of depression, insecurity, no self-confidence. I don't know. I just went through this really weird down spiral. But be careful what you wish for, because about 5 weeks into said long break, which if you know me and you follow me on social media, you can find me on Instagram at Sara McInerney Hawk. I put a lot of my life out there. So I made this grand announcement that I'm taking this social media and podcast.
It was like 100 days or something.
100 days. Yes. Because right when I decided, I was like, I can't mill around in these things. I'm either going to do it or not. And I looked on the calendar and there was like 105 days to go in the year. And I was like, 100 days. That's what I'm going to do. So I make
branding, right? We're a little obsessed with branding.
Yeah, we're always planning. So I make this plan to shut down the show temporarily, get off my personal and podcast social media so I can just gather myself. 5 weeks in, I find out, so probably like 4 weeks into this break, I felt a lump in my breast, and I actually did not find it by feeling it. I found it by seeing it. it has created a dimple on the outside of my right breast. And so when I saw that in the mirror, I was like, huh. So then, of course, the first thing you do is raise your arm and feel around. And I could definitely feel something. And feeling that, I wasn't scared or anxious. Like, you just think it'll never be me. Who cares?
Yeah.
And I'm a problem solver when it comes to my body. Like, I take care of it for sure. So made an appointment, went, and then that led to other appointments, which led to other appointments and other tests to say that I was diagnosed in October 2021 with stage 1 invasive ductal carcinoma. That's the name of my cancer. And when I found out, I literally had to Google, does carcinoma mean cancer? So,
because they didn't tell you cancer.
Well, ironically, you see the lab results before they call you. So it was horrible. Like, for 3 days at work, I would, like, every other meeting
Google every possible part of that paper.
Yeah. So I saw my results by myself in a meeting, like an idiot, because I was checking it during a meeting, and then was panic Googling, does carcinoma mean cancer? And it does. But then literally like 20 minutes later, the doctor called me. So
they called you.
Yeah, it wasn't too brutal of a break. But yeah, so I am facing the fear of breast cancer at 30 years old.
And I like, so now you came back from the hiatus, from your social media and podcasting hiatus, and you're documenting every step of this process, which I think has been amazing. And for someone that podcast, I think it's the best way. It's kind of journaling with an audience.
Yeah.
At least when I hear you, I know that you're doing the work as you're sharing it. So it's a little, so in this moment when because I've obviously heard your story, but for the people that haven't heard it, so the moment that you find out, what is the thought? Like, you're just 100% into proactivity because you're a very proactive person, or you have this severe breaking down moment? Like, how does that look?
Yes. So thank you for connecting the circle there. I came back from the break to document my journey. So on my podcast, I've talked a lot about cancer and other life moments, and it has helped. It is journaling out loud, and it has been wonderful for me, and I hope connected for other people facing either cancer or something similar, or they know someone and they don't know what the F to say or they're going through. I hope that the work I'm doing and bringing the podcast back to life has helped. But when I found out, I was at work, and when I saw the number come up on my phone, I immediately grabbed my laptop and went outside and sat on the curb. And actually, this day is a funny story. So we have a gym at our office, and just like anybody else, I was waiting for these results, but I was going to keep going about my normal life. So I got up super early. I come to work in my gym clothes, go in the gym, do my thing, and then I shower afterwards and go to get dressed. And on this day, I'm just so sick of waiting, and I'm like very anxious. So I wore this like really pretty outfit, and I love this shirt, and these are my favorite jeans. And I take my shower, I go to get dressed, and I'm missing the jeans. I left them at home.
No.
So now I'm like, oh shit. Like, this ruins the whole outfit. Like, the jeans were black for a reason, and the workout pants I wore were like green. So I was like, oh my God. So me being me, I have like a hodgepodge of workout clothes in my car. So I just wore that, and I seriously
good for you.
I looked like a fool. And I sent 2 of my girlfriends at work, because the office is rather large, so it's not guaranteed like I'd run into them that day or whatever. So I sent them a video, text message, like making fun of myself. Like, I'm a 30-year-old adult and I look like a buffoon right now because I forgot my pants. So
all detail.
Yeah. So Jacob is on spring break at this time. Jacob works in the school system, so that's the calendar he has. Nice. No, I'm sorry, fall break. All right. And I text him and call him. I'm like, please bring me these pants. Like, I know exactly where I left them. And his first text back was, I'm going to be sleeping, and then I have a haircut at 11. And I was like, 11? My day started at 5:30. Bring me the pants. What's the big deal? Bring me the pants. So I get this call. I go outside on the curb, and when she told me, you're right. They don't say cancer, they say carcinoma. So I asked her and said, do I say that I have breast cancer? And she was like, yes. And I was like, what? It was just so very disconnecting, because at least the type of cancer I have, and from what I've heard, a lot of breast cancer, it causes you no harm. There's no symptoms other than the lump. There's no sickness. There's no, like, you don't lose your hair when you get cancer. So I just felt I felt guilty because cancer is such a heavy word, and we see it in the movies and the TV shows as people who are bald or kids with cancer or really old people. You don't see everyday people with cancer. And so when she told me, I didn't cry. I wasn't hysterical. I literally made her repeat things to me. I took detailed notes, and I had her break down the whole report. And so the next steps were they make an appointment with you to go the next day to talk to a breast surgeon and start your whole journey. So I'm sitting outside on the curb at work, and I hang up with her, and who rolls up to the office front lobby? Jacob. And I actually caught him before he went into the building. And we sat on this little bench outside of my office, and I told him, and that's what made me break down and cry.
Yeah. Because it feels real for the first time.
Yeah. And I couldn't even look him in the eyes. Like, I felt bad for him. I felt bad that I had this thing. I felt bad that both of us were going to have to face it as a married, partnership. And that's when I cried and felt bad. So that was my first release of, kind of feeling it, because I had to tell somebody else. And I'm so lucky, I forgot my pants because I was able to tell the person who I would have wanted to tell first and in person. So
everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
As weird as it is. But...
that was like my first God wink. I've had many God winks in this journey, and that was the first one, was forgetting my pants.
Who would have known the black jeans played such an important role? I love that you call that God winks, and I know in your episodes you bring all these examples, right? Obviously, all the people that have supported you, or all these coincidences that happen.
Yes.
And I think it's also good that you've already had, one time I was with my therapist, and she lost a really good friend, and I told her, how was that? How did she handle it? How was she able to, handle such an important, like, her best friends? Because one thing is, like, someone that's older, you're kind of automatically, weirdly enough, you're kind of preparing yourself for something to happen to older people. But when it's someone as young as you, as young as me, it's big. And she told me, Viviana, it's very interesting that throughout your life, you're preparing yourself and you're gathering resources. So in her case, she's a therapist. She does a lot of mindfulness, yoga. She's very in tune with the spirituality. In your case, you've been literally gathering stories of people facing fear. What has been the role of all those lessons and all those podcast episodes in the way you're handling this situation?
I mean, that in itself is insane. The 4 days I spent wondering every second of the day, do I have it? Do I not? Do I have it? Do I not? I almost felt this peaceful settling before they told me that I was going to have it, because exactly like you're saying, what are the chances I have built this foundation and this brand and stood for this brand and shouted about it and talked about it for years and interviewed all these people? I'm going to get this. I'm going to get this. And it was I was never really mad or sad about it when I found out I had it, because I was just okay, it just goes with the brand. And we love that, shout
it's
out,
my turn.
Shout out KO. We love the branding. And I thought, okay, fine. If it's going to be me, then it'll be me. And it was. So yeah, and I've interviewed all these people and watched them do incredibly brave things or challenging things. And I just thought, all right, well, now's my turn. And I did that, literally making it my turn, because the podcast, if you guys go check it out, the past 8 episodes, which accumulates to over 2 months now, have been just me on the microphone talking about what's going on with cancer medically, my feelings about it, my emotions about it, these events that have happened since then. And then, of course, all these God winks, these beautiful universe, God moments that I've had where I know that for the better, for the worse, this journey was meant for me. And I just am going to make something out of it. We're going to make it for the better.
I love it. Do you want to share some God winks?
Yeah, let's see. Okay, so the pants story was definitely one. My first MRI, I go in there, and MRIs are this machine that they put your whole body through, and they're a little tunnel. People who are claustrophobic hate them. And on top of it, the machine itself is so loud. We don't know why, but they're so loud.
And they give you like plugs and it does nothing.
They give you earplugs and these big 80s style headphones, and it's still so loud.
Yeah.
And so when I went in for my very first MRI, that eventually told us the results, that it looked like the cancer had spread, and just within my one breast, though, which is good news, but it's in more than one place than just my lung. They asked me, they were like, oh, do you want to pick from a CD? And I said, sure. So she shows me this list, and it's like super old CDs, which is totally fine. Like, we love nostalgia. And I love John Mayer. Well, it actually just lists the artist name. And so I said, okay, I'll take whatever John Mayer CD you have. And the CD was Bigger Things. And I just was like, oh, this is a big thing. Like, I wish this wasn't this thing, but it was just like a beautiful soundtrack for one of the first big scary appointments I had. Let me see if I can think of another one too.
Which is super nice being in that machine.
Yeah,
because I know everything itches because you can't move and it's super loud and you're like, what is this? Is my life? But then having like lyrics inspire you in that moment, I think makes you connect in such like a beautiful way, as messy as that sounds, because it's
not called Bigger Things. I'm an idiot. The album is called Heavier Things, which makes so much more sense. This was such a heavy diagnosis and a heavy moment and a what the fuck chapter for me. So the album is called Heavier Things, and there's one of the lead title tracks off that album is a song called Heavier Things, and I listen to it on repeat.
I'm gonna listen to it.
Yeah, and it's going to forever reminds me of that chapter. So that was one. Okay, here's another really awesome one. So I wanted, when I first joined this community, this breast cancer sisterhood, for whether I wanted to or not, my mom sent me a bunch of links from Amazon and was like, can I get you a shirt or a hat or a scarf, with the ribbon? And it says like, eat, pray, love, I have breast cancer. The perfect word for the breast cancer merchandise out there is chuggy. And chuggy means like, just kind of like gross and so
cliche-ish
fast fashion. The chevron pattern is a good example of chuggy. Pretty much you and I in middle school were chuggy. So it's
the 90s, early 2000s.
It's Gen Z's way of making fun of millennials, which is us. But anyway, so all the stuff she's sending me is just so lame and gross. And I'm just like, Mom, no, it's okay. Like, if you want to spend your money, run it by my sisters first, because they will tell you what to get or what not to get. But again, a moment of, this is why I was diagnosed with this. This is why I felt watched out by God throughout this whole process, is because last year during the pandemic, when I kicked ass on the podcast, I built a merchandise shop and I learned how to design my own stuff and price it and sell it and do the taxes and shipping and everything. And it was all facing fear stuff, which is awesome and lovely. And people bought it and they were so nice. And so when I couldn't really find anything that I felt like fit my personality and how you want to feel going through cancer, which is you want to feel like badass, your own superhero, I decided to make my own stuff. I called my designer who did all my branding for me, and I was like, hey, can we make some kind of F cancer logo that I can use that matches my branding? And she drew it up in literally 24 hours, sent it back to me, and I was like, done. Give me this in all the versions. And so, long story short, that's a God wink in itself, setting up the merchandise shop and being able to use it for good.
Have a foundation that you can actually like customize for yourself.
Yeah, it was already there. It wasn't like I was being diagnosed with cancer and trying to figure out how to price a long sleeve t-shirt versus a short sleeve one. Like, I had already done all that. So I get all this merchandise up and people are wonderful and start buying it. And I was about to hit my 100th order. And I'm like, whoever this is, I'm going to give them a major shout out. And it turned out to be this woman from my office who had retired probably 4 years ago. And I knew her, but I didn't know her super well. But one thing I did know is after she left, she was still at Finish Line. Towards her last years, she's been with Finish Line forever. She worked so hard, so many different departments, has this retirement plan. There was a big office party for her when she left. But 2 years, I think, before she left, she was diagnosed with cancer. And it wasn't breast cancer, it was a different one. But again, it was somebody I said hi to in the hallway. We were Facebook friends, but that was it. Of all the people, and she's an older woman. So this is just a great example of you never know who's watching. You never know who you're going to impact. She bought the 100th thing from me. And we have this beautiful pathways cross from working at the same office for a long time. We knew each other, but not very well. She's never commented on a single thing, like nothing throughout my whole journey, which is fine. But it was just crazy. She went to the website, saw something she liked, paid for it, and bought it. That's just nuts to me sometimes, It's hard enough to get people to like your shit with a simple tap of a finger, but let alone someone like her who is kind of distant from me, went through and bought something, and then she was the 100th person. It was so beautiful. And I tracked down her phone number and called her, and she didn't answer. So she texted me back later in the day because she was busy, and sent me the nicest, most lovely text. And it was just beautiful. So that's another good one for sure.
I love it. Something that I've always known from you from the beginning, because when I met you, you told me the story about how your friends were the ones that got you the plane ticket or the hotel in order to go to the conference. So they knew what this podcasting conference meant to you, and you didn't have the funds at that moment to splurge, just because you got the free tickets, right?
Yeah.
And everyone got together and supported you in that. And I've been seeing the support that you've gotten from so many people. So I think, I've talked to my parents and I'm like, at this age, right there, late 60s, what is one thing that you've learned is extremely important to live a happy life? And they told me relationships, like keep your friends, work with your friends, work on that relationship, be consistent, be someone that stays in touch, work that relationship. Can you give us because clearly this is something natural of your essence, pre any podcasting, pre-cancer, how have you built these relationships and what have you noticed that has been the impact in your overall well-being? Because clearly having cheerleaders is medicine in itself. So it'd be nice to hear your perspective.
Yeah, a lot of my personality comes from being the oldest sibling in my family, and a lot of my personality comes from the way my parents raised us, for sure. So just growing up as a kid, I was really shy, but my parents ensured that we were always very respectful to other kids, other parents. Whatever house we spent the night at, we left it better than how we found it. And my mom was a big thank you card enthusiast. Everything we get, we write a thank you card for when we were kids. And I've so taken that to heart over the years. So I enjoy
Let's see. Where's your thank you card?
Oh, I wonder which version of it you have, because there's been some rebrands throughout my journey. So I think I know which one you have.
I know it's here. I will find it.
We were just talking about how organized we are.
As I'm saying, I'm organized. But I saw it because I think you sent one when I got the first shirt and the sticker.
Yes.
And then you sent one again with the other sticker. I'll find that.
Oh, yes, you do have two. You do have two, yes. And they're different.
Yeah. So I think I have both versions because I got this shout out to your merch.
Oh, it's so pretty.
It's so pretty.
Oh.
I love it. But anyway, I feel you. I'm a huge thank you card too.
Yes. And just that, I think, has honestly been a staple in how I treat relationships. Just go the tiny extra mile and people will be cheerleaders for you. They will cheer you on. So I've taken that with me for just ever. Anybody I appreciate, I say thank you. I tell them. I tell them why. I'll write the thank you note. In college, I'm still in contact with some of my professors because if I really enjoyed their class and got a lot from it, I didn't just leave on the final day. I left them with a thank you card for doing what they do. And so I feel like if I could exemplify how I treat relationships, it's probably best explained through handwritten thank you cards and making people feel special because they've given me something. The least I can do is try to give that feeling back to them. And then I would say the other thing that's a staple in how I treat relationships is living by this standard or goal or moral that anybody who crosses paths with me, somebody at work I see every day, good friends like you, my family, or complete strangers, I want it to be a positive interaction. So those are some things that have sat with me and that carry with me as I treat relationships, and they have clearly paid off time and time again. And Viviana mentioned my friends got some money together so I could go to this conference, because in March of 2020, when Viviana and I were going to this conference, I was heavily planning for my original wedding date, which was supposed to be in May 2020. And so they got it was just, everything was last minute. I didn't know anybody in Orlando to stay with, and I'm always trying to fall on a budget. They did that. Then we had our little pandemic wedding, which everybody gave so much support for. Then we had the real wedding. Then we bought our house. Then Jacob and I both turned 30. I feel like people are just ready for me to shut up and my life to be boring, because I've probably received 4 we care about you or we love you cards from the same people because of these massive events that have happened in my life over the past 2 years. So yeah, I have surgery coming up next week and I feel like it's put up or shut up time.
I know, but you know what? From the perspective of obviously a friend, or I think you don't see it as, oh my God, this girl, you see them separately. You're able to separate those things.
Good. One of my girlfriends, when she found out I had it, she was one of the first people to give me a card. And she goes, well, this sounds like a great fucking chapter for your life book coming up. I was like, yeah, I guess you're right. I'm going to have to write a book at this point.
No, and I think honestly, obviously this is something that we won't wish on anyone, but if we try to see the positive side to it, you're a season. Now you're the story, which is something that when you are a podcaster and you're a host and you're looking for stories consistently, you're always kind of abandoning your own story, whether it's because you don't believe you have one or you don't think anyone's interested. At this point, everyone that's listened to every possible story is now interested in yours. And that in itself is amazing to know that you are the content. You are what people want to hear about. So that is both amazing for you for venting purposes, and also amazing for you to have easy content to put together, Yeah.
Yes. What she's describing are my last 8 or 9 episodes where it's just been me talking about medically the cancer, feelings wise the cancer, God moments, whatever. And I actually just reviewed my journals from last year, because every New Year's I try to go back and read, not word for word, but most of what I've written for them the past year. And I wrote in there, how am I going to do this alone? How am I going to tell my story by myself? And it's turned out to be mentally and emotionally one of the best things, because when you podcast by yourself and you're telling your own story, at least with this one for me, which it's been a pretty heavy emotional thing, it allows me to cry. It allows me to sit here by myself and think about it, instead of answering all the questions I answer all day long to everyone who's so wonderful and loves me. But it gives me a chance to ask Sara how she feels. So it's been lovely. It's been cathartic. Like I said, I hope it's helped other people. I hope other cancer patients listen to it and are like, oh yes, she's putting into words what I'm feeling. And then yes, as people who love and care about me, which I'm definitely not short of, it's a really good way for them to know what the hell is going on with her this week, because every week something would change.
Yeah, no, for sure. Every time because I've been really good at listening to podcasts now that life is kind of back to normal from a commute standpoint and from your schedule. I've been catching up a lot, and every time I see an episode, I'm like, wait, I need to like start listening to it. So I crack up with you, I cry with you. You don't see me, but I'm there, and it's definitely an amazing channel, and you're doing amazing things. And I know you're gonna turn out, victorious at the end of this road. I know you have your surgery coming up, no?
Yep. And okay, today we're doing this on a Sunday. Holy cow. We have Monday to go, Tuesday to go, and it's on Wednesday.
Yeah. So by the time I probably publish this, you would have already had your surgery. But we wish you, we wish you the best. And honestly, at the end of the day, it's what we just talked about. You've built such a great, solid emotional and mental foundation to handle these types of situations. You've done how many episodes already in Facing Fear with Sara?
Oh, I think I just crossed 80.
Imagine. O sea, you've talked with probably 80 people that have told you how they face their fears and how they've grown after it, how they've become new versions of themselves. And it's what you're saying. It's not faced fears with Sara. It's facing, it's this now, and something else will probably happen in the future, but it's like a muscle, right? And is you're into fitness and everything, but the more you face fears, the easier it gets in the future.
Yes. And it's just, so the logo associated with my whole thing is a really cute modern lightning bolt. And my designer and I came up with this because facing fear often requires some kind of listening to your gut. So you get this like jolt, and facing fear looks like lightning. It can be scary and it sounds really bad. And why would you do that in all these situations between me and my guests? But then, it's cool to look at lightning because it looks pretty and it's unique every time. And then the boom comes and you're still standing. And on the other side, there are some really beautiful things, whether it's a nice little rainstorm or a rainbow. But yes, facing fear is absolutely something I feel in my heart. I see it in my life and other people's lives. And it is for sure a muscle. And you think you've conquered it all, and you think you know what's going on.
And then boom, another lightning.
Something happens, and you've got to face another fear, whether you like it or not. And it's so much better I also, use the word face fear, not conquer fear, not champion, not overcome, because nobody does it perfectly. We screw up a lot, and we may not conquer the fear on the first, second, or third try, but it's just the courage to face it. The courage to look at it, to examine it, to start to do something about it is what you've got to exercise.
I love it. I do follow this other person who also talks about facing fears. And she always says that the goal is not to be fearless, it's to be courageous and be able to face it in the strongest way possible. So I'm super, super proud of you. I know that we're probably going to we should do another like recap after this and be like, what have we learned in this whole process? And because I think it's also learning, but I'm glad that you've been so diligent and consistent. You've already created also the structure and planning and all that you've treated your appointments like that, and you've moved super fast, which is super important.
Yes, definitely.
I'm excited to continue listening to your episodes, right? Because that's the best way to catch up.
Yes, and like I said, so this will come out after my surgery, but I have an episode dropping the day of my surgery, and it's because I'm finally interviewing somebody else. So we'll get to hear somebody else's story while I go through my surgery and recover. By the way, for anybody who's listening to this and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm wondering what kind of surgery she's having. If you are a part of the breast cancer world, you would be wondering that. But I'm having a bilateral mastectomy for two main reasons. One, because my cancer exists in multiple places within my breast. And two, I'm positive for a gene called CHEK2. So it was the smartest long-term facing fear decision, because trust me, I do not want to give up my breast. I'm very scared of what's going to happen to my nipples. Go listen to the podcast. I talk all about that.
And you got a photo shoot done. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, so I also did a photo shoot while I still have my boobs and my nipples, because I love my boobs. People have said, oh, well, you'll get new implants and you'll get fake boobs for the rest of your life. I don't care. I don't want those. I like my boobs.
Yeah.
I've always liked my boobs. I've been a lucky woman who is thankful for the size she is. So anyways, but So that's the type of surgery I'm having. But yeah, I talked about that. I talked about the gene and everything all over there. But this week and next week, because it'll be 2 parts, is all about a friend who I have met through this journey, and her name is Amber, and she tells her cancer story. So definitely go check it out, and then you can listen to the 9 other episodes with just me and my voice.
Yes. So remind us your Instagram and the podcast officially what the name is.
Yes. So the podcast is called Facing Fear. You can find it on any directory that you use between, Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, etc. I am trying to release shows on a weekly basis, like a good podcast host should, but my life has been rudely interrupted many times, so I do my best. On social media, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, it's at Facing Fear with Sara. And then my personal Instagram, I'm on all the time. I love Instagram personally. So that account is called at Sara McInerney Hawk. SARAMCI will get you to me.
Yes. I will definitely include this all in the show notes so that you can link easier, because I know your last name's a little complicated too.
Yes, it is. Yes, I kept my maiden name as my middle name. Of course, have to plug the website, facingfearwithsara.com, and then hit the merch tab, and you will find badass superhero vibes cancer merch. So whether you know somebody going through it, get something for them, or you are a brother, sister, mom, dad, cousin of somebody who's had it, show your support and go check it out. It's way, way, way better than what you'll find on Amazon. Just saying.
Yes. Good to know. Good to know for sure.
Oh, and sorry, the last thing, because I literally just made this yesterday. I now have fight cancer stuff for people who are not, yes, for people who are not so hip with the F word, which is totally fine. I have fight cancer stuff. So a little bit more PG, a little bit more appropriate. I had some kid cousins of mine request, and I was like, oh my God, I'll do anything for you guys. Yes. So I made, there's fuck cancer stuff and then fight cancer stuff. And then there's just some more plain Facing Fear stuff. So go check it out. facingfearwithsara.com/merch.
Please do, and send all the positive which is not a word, but the best vibes over to Sara in this new journey and recovery. So thank you, Sara, for your time, and I wish you the best. And we'll stay in touch via your podcast for sure, because I know all these episodes will be amazing. So thank you, girlie.
And thanks for what you do, Viviana, and this beautiful Life Whispers world you've created. I'm going to be as badass as Viviana one day with my shit. But until then, I'm just going to keep asking her for tips and trials and tribulations that she blazes on this podcast path first, and then I will fall behind you. And I truly love you, Viviana. I don't really throw the L word around a lot, but you are just a beautiful soul. And one day I will get to hug you and tackle you to the floor again.
Oh, yes. I can't wait for that day. And trust me, the admiration is mutual. I think in this world, we all look after each other and we look at what we do and we're like, oh, that was so good. I need to do something like that. And it's always nice to have someone to like chat about. So for sure, I hope the day is near. I'm hoping to visit you soon, or you have to come to Puerto Rico.
I know. Either way, we got to figure something out because it's been too long.
Yay. All right, but thank you so much. So thank you everyone for tuning into another episode of the Life Whispers podcast. Take care. That's that.